So an up-and-coming band was trying to finish their second album and needed one more song to fill it out. They had a tight deadline and were running out of time. So that night, the frontman wrote one in a jiffy. He knew it was filler, but he'd be able to tack it on the end of the album and the record would finally be finished. It ended up being a #1 smash and it turned the band inside out. It actually ended up changing their musical direction as they put their guitars in storage and they fully embraced synthesizers. And to set them on the course to dominate America as one of the best hitmakers of the 80s in the synth-pop era. Their biggest was born out of a real-life heartbreak. The bandmates, who became lovers, had just gone through a painful breakup with one another, and writing today's song together became a form of therapy. It turned their raw emotions into one of the most powerful pop ballads of the 80s, and they did it in real time as they were talking out the problem and happened to record it in the process. It became a song. We have one of them here next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember those book orders that they used to send home with you, teachers used to put them in your book bag, and begging your parents for books from joke books to movie novelizations, you're going to dig this channel of mega nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now, click the bell, promise you're going to dig something that we're putting down here. So it's time for another edition of #1 in Our Hearts. This show honors songs that were so unbelievably great, they should have been #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, but for whatever reason, radio play, lack of marketing, label support, or even just sheer stupidity, the song came up short. Previous episodes, we've covered Just Like Heaven by The Cure, You're Loved by The Outfield, and Head Over Heels by Tears for Fears.
You, just like heaven.
Today, we're going to take a trip back to 1983 and 84, a little bit of 84. We're going to cover the Thompson Twins' classic song, Hold Me Now, from their 4th studio album, Into the Gap.
Hold me now. Whoa.
This is going to be a great one. Let's get into this. So, UK synth pop pioneers Thompson Twins formed in Sheffield, England in '77. The original lineup consisted of 3 friends, Tom Bailey, Peter Dodd, and John Roog. The trio named themselves after the pair of clueless detectives from the Belgian comic series Adventures of Tintin. Most of you probably know that if you're fans. Bailey explained that they chose the name because it represented a fascinating dynamic to him. Thompson and Thompson, they were a clumsy mess, when it came to their job. Yet somehow they would accidentally stumble onto the right answer by the end of each case. It's a process that would actually be prophetic of the Thompson Twins' own rise to commercial success. Give you more on that in just a second. So early on, the threesome moved to London where they added drummer Chris Bell to the lineup. And then in 1981, the group expanded to include Joe Leeway on percussion and vocals, Matthew Seligman on bass, and Alana Curie on percussion and saxophone. There in London, the 7-piece became something of a novelty act, often encouraging their audience to join them on stage to beat on cans, for extra percussion. Now that same year, the Twins signed with Hansa Records, and they allowed them to set up their own label, T Records. The band would release their first 2 albums on the T Records imprint. However, their debut, A Product of Participation, that failed to make much of a mark. In fact, it missed the charts in both the United Kingdom and the United States. For their sophomore LP, which they called Set, Thompson Twins gave the reins to famed producer Steve Lillywhite. Now, at this point, there were strictly guitar, drums, bass, and the percussion lineup. But with Lillywhite's help, they would tap into a more polished sound. As Tom Bailey tells it, Set was a big moment for the band. They had a big-time producer, an expensive studio, and, this album, it was going to be their big break. However, they'd come up short, and they didn't have enough material to finish this record. So, Tom said, I got this. He just scraped up enough money to buy a synthesizer. So after getting the synth, he told his bandmates he'd go home and just write a filler song that night. Just finish the album. They could tack it on the end of side 2 and just call it a day. So he went home and wrote In the Name of Love on his synthesizer. Thing is, as any fan knows, this song was such a strong track, It got top billing. It was placed front and center as the album's opener. It became an accidental hit for the band. Tom said about it, rather embarrassingly, it became the hit single because it landed on a new sound and a new approach to making music. End of quote. In the Name of Love, it went to #1 on the Billboard Dance Club chart and stayed there for an amazing 5 weeks. It became the band's first underground hit, and it completely changed the direction of this band. Tom Bailey reduced the band back to a three-piece. He retained Joe Leeway, Alana Curry, and from then on, at their core, they were synth and percussion, and that's it. Going into their third album, Thompson Twins set clear commercial goals for themselves. This album, it was going to have hits, and they wanted to perform them on the British TV show Top of the Pops. Called Sidekicks in the US, the record spawned 2 dance chart singles, Lies, that went to #1.
Lies, 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 yeah.
And Love on Your Side, that one reached #6. Both classics of the 80s.
Love on your side, 'cause you got love.
Now, Sidekicks rose to #2 in the UK, and it became the first Thompson Twins record to breach the US Billboard 200. It went to #34. This album was proof that they'd figured out their formula for success, all thanks to the accidental success of a synthesized filler track. Seems the Thompson Twins were living up to their namesake. Their next record, Into the Gap, it would be even bigger. Released on February 17th, 1984, Into the Gap, it went platinum in the US, and it went to #10 on the Billboard 200. Internationally, it reached #7 in Switzerland, it went to #6 in West Germany, went to #4 in Australia, #3 in Canada, and it went to #1 in New Zealand and their native UK. So, it was a hit around the world. Co-produced by Alex Sadkin and Tom Bailey, the record issued a total of 5 singles. There was Dr. Doctor, You Take Me Up, Sister of Mercy, The Gap, and the track that the Twins are best remembered for, Hold Me Now.
Oh, doctor, doctor, love one that lasts for all time. Take me up. No sister of mercy, but I keep moving out into the gap. Oh, my heart.
Not exactly a typical dance club hit. Hold Me Now, it still killed it on the US dance charts anyway. Describing the track, Tom called Hold Me Now a medium-tempo, emotional song with one foot in the dance department. Speaking to its musicality, he emphasized that the bass line and chord sequence are actually the same in both verse and chorus. Think about that. Doesn't seem that way until you really listen to it. The only difference between them is how much extra instrumentation is used. Whereas recent hits have been written using just a drum machine and synthesizer, Hold Me Now, it showcased an expanded roster of equipment for Thompson Twins, including the return of guitars and a wide variety of percussions. There's also tambourines, cowbell, cymbals, marimbas, timpanis, you name it.
Of a kind. Both of us.
Said Alana, it's such an emotional song. We wanted to have that warmth you often can't get from synthesizers. It makes sense. It's a great example of how to blend technology and traditional instruments.
Searching for some perfect world we know we'll never find.
As far as the origins of Hold Me Now, that actually goes back to an argument between Tom Bailey and Alana Curry. The two had been romantically involved since about 1980, and it was a delicate balance to be both bandmates and lovers. To make it work, they would book separate hotel rooms wherever they went on tour. I guess that was their way of, building personal space into their relationship. But personal space wasn't enough to stop quarrels, arguments from happening. That's where Hold Me Now comes in. In the interviews I've seen, Tom Bailey seems to have either withheld or forgotten the specifics about what happened. But the dispute seems to have been serious enough to really shake him up and inspire this song. Good news is that it didn't take long for the couple to reconcile. And after kissing and making up, Tom and Alana realized that what they had just experienced would make a very powerful subject for a song. So they decided to write one while their emotions were, still raw from a big argument. And it all flowed out in just a matter of a few minutes. The track opens with some really memorable visuals. Visuals that every 80s kid worth his or her salt knows by heart. I have a picture pinned to my wall.
I have a picture.
An image of you and me, and we're laughing, we're loving it all.
You and me, and we're laughing, we're loving it all.
Then the drama hits. Look at our life now, all tattered and torn. We fuss and we fight and delight in the tears that we cry until dawn. I also love how the words flow in this. It's pure 80s jukebox poetry. Bailey creates such a beautiful and heart-wrenching contrast with those lyrics. And it just sings.
Delight in the tears that we cry until dawn.
And of course, the intensity, it only builds from that point. The song takes us through the highs and lows of fighting and reconciling with someone you love. You can just feel the depth of the pain and the yearning for resolution in the song.
And this is just one of those games that we play.
The song continues to progress until it reaches that fateful, iconic line, "I'll even ask your forgiveness, though I don't know just what I'm asking it for." I mean, are you kidding me? It's brilliant.
Forgiveness, though I don't know just what I'm asking him for.
I don't know how literal these lyrics were for the two, but you would think they had to be pretty true to life. It's just so relatable. I just don't think you can make that stuff up. The chorus, oh man, the chorus. That's, of course, the clincher here. I mean, pure emotional ear candy. Hold me now, warm my heart. Stay with me, let lovin' start. Though through the years, many have misheard those lyrics. I've heard a lot of friends sing them wrong. But poignantly, Tom remarked, and I quote, "No one sets out to say, what would we do if we'd fallen out? How would we write a song about making up again? But it actually happens. So you just latch onto that moment. It's a precious thing that you can write about quite easily. And it's something people want to hear about. It's just part of human nature." End of quote. It's just so true. So a while back, I had the opportunity to sit down with the great Tom Bailey. I was so excited to talk to him about his career, including some insights into this song. Let me share with you what he said about Hold Me Now. It's a new wave classic. I mean, it's one of those classics. It was named in Blender's top 300 songs since you were born, is that what they call the list. But it's been, that's the first Thompson Twins song I remember hearing. Tell me about how that came together.
Well, I think we had begun to mature as songwriters in the sense that we were moving away from the kind of quirky, cartoonish approach to everything and towards an interest in evoking emotion. And the palette of the music started to broaden. We were including pianos and guitars, and so it wasn't just synthetic sounds anymore. And it was just one of those moments where it all came together. I mean, it's a real song about real emotions, and therefore it becomes universal. Interestingly, we recorded that before the rest of the album, and then it was released in the States whilst we were recording the album. So we were in the Bahamas at Compass Point Studios getting crazy phone calls from the record company saying, "It's going crazy, yeah." Which actually sets a wonderfully high bar for the rest of the album.
Right.
Wow, we can't afford to blow it now.
Exactly. Because it was a big hit. I mean, it went top 3. And I remember sitting in a bar listening to a band one time. It was a hardcore heavy metal band, and they played a version of Hold Me Now. It was pretty interesting.
Yes, you do hear versions.
Yeah.
Songs like
Now, Hold Me Now, it may be a little sentimental, but it was a track that a lot of people could relate to. And not only that, from all walks of life. Proof is in the charts. It went to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 9 on the Main Street Rock chart, number 8 on the Adult Contemporary chart, and it went to number 1 on the Dance Club chart. That's 4 separate top 10 appearances on those charts. Talk about a legitimate crossover hit, one of the biggest of the 80s. Internationally, it had a ton of success as well. Went to number 18 in Switzerland, number 9 in Ireland, 8 in South Africa, 7 in Germany, 4 in the UK, and number 3 in Canada and Australia. So the music video, very memorable. It was directed by Rupert James, and it features the Thompson Trio on a set with a blue background, which mirrors the backdrop of the album cover. The video is heavily edited with split screen shots and some uniquely 80s effects. Unfortunately, it doesn't offer much in terms of a storyline. Kind of felt like a missed opportunity when I saw it as a kid. It would have been cool to get some more insight into the narrative of the song, but hey, it's an enjoyable slice of 80s nostalgia nonetheless. Through the years, Hold Me Now has popped up in a lot of TV shows and movies. There's 10 Things I Hate About You, Cold Case, Everybody Hates Chris, The Simpsons, New Girl, Glow, The Blacklist.
Love this song.
And of course, as part of the all things 80s go-to soundtrack for Adam Sandler's The Wedding Singer, a very memorable way they used it there. It's also been covered by Duncan Sheik.
Stay with me.
Tiffany, and Yacht Rock Review. Notable performances of the song include an appearance on Top of the Pops in '83. Yep, they reached their goal of being on that particular show. They were also on Saturday Night Live in 1984. And then, of course, the granddaddy of them all, Live Aid in 1985. Bailey called Live Aid the end to a chapter in their career, because how could it get any bigger than that performance? In addition to Hold Me Now, Thompson Twins also teamed up with the members of Chic, Madonna, and Steve Stevens to cover the Beatles' Revolution. So in September of '85, the Thompson Twins followed up Into the Gap with Here's to Future Days, actually my favorite album that they put out. Co-produced by Tom Bailey, Nile Rodgers, and Alex Sadkin. The album featured 2 top 10 hits, Lay Your Hands on Me, that one came in at number 6, and King for a Day, that one reached number 8. Here's to Future Days was the band's second biggest U.S. hit, climbing to number 20 on the Billboard 200 Albums chart. However, it was also their last record as a trio. In 1986, Joe Leeway, he left the band. That gave Thompson Twins twins for the first time in their career, a numerically correct name. After Leeway's departure, Bailey and Curie released 2 more albums in the 80s. There was 1987's Close to the Bone and 1989's Big Trash. Unfortunately, neither matched the success of the band's previous works. However, in the late 80s, Thompson Twins did manage to score a couple more U.S. dance chart hits, including a number 1 remix of In the Name of Love. That one appeared on their 1988 Greatest Hits album that every New Wave fan had. Am I right? So by the time they were ready to release their 1991 album Queer, their label Warner Brothers, they were getting really concerned. So they actually decided to ship the record's lead single Come Inside to radio stations without any mention of the group's name. The rave-style track was popular with club DJs, but once it was revealed that the Thompson Twins had written it, sales actually dropped off. And afterwards, Queer failed to break into the charts at all. But the thing is, they were intentionally moving away from the mainstream. Their label was pushing for big emotional pop songs in the vein of Hold Me Now, songs that could be all over radio. But Bailey and Curie didn't want to keep repeating themselves. I mean, of course, you have to grow as an artist, and it was experimentation that paved the way for their commercial explosion in the first place. So the Twins decided they were going to change things up, including the name of the band. They changed it to Babel. Adding longtime engineer Keith Fernley to the group, the trio released 2 albums in the 90s, Stone in 94 and Ether in 96. Neither was much of commercial success. That was okay, though. They were doing what they loved, and I really liked those records. In fact, Bailey called the first Babel album one of the high points of his career. It was experimental. It was dream pop. It was kind of psychedelic. It was everything that he wanted at that time. When I was interviewing Tom, he told me, and I'll never forget, it was really cool. He said, you got to take risks. You got to experiment. If you do that, it will reward you. You know what? Tom is living proof of that. I mean, just look at today's track, Hold Me Now. That's a reward that keeps on giving. One of the most iconic tracks of the 80s, the crown jewel in the Thompson Twins catalog. Just missed out on number 1 by just 2 spots, but today we're putting it where it belongs. Without a doubt, Hold Me Now deserves to be number 1 in our hearts, a true 80s classic. And you know what? Me and my friends one time did a metal version of Hold Me Now. We were screaming the lyrics. It actually kind of worked. But you know what? Nothing can beat the original. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Thompson Twins and Hold Me Now. What are your memories of the song? What do you think about it in terms of one of the classic 80s songs? What other Thompson Twins songs should we cover? What are your favorite Thompson Twins songs? This is one of the most underrated bands of the 80s, in my opinion. They just, every one of their hit singles, it just sticks with you. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.